Voters in Key West. They took to the polls this November not only to decide the fate of the nation, but the fate of one of the country's biggest tourism industries as well. In an unprecedented move, Key West voters weighed in on three measures that had the potential to drastically limit the number of cruise ships allowed to dock at the city's port. But according to a recent Miami Herald investigative report, in the months leading up to the election, a disinformation campaign was secretly funded by the industry to sway voters. Here with more on this now is Taylor Dolvin, a tourism reporter and one of the authors of the article, How the Cruise Industry Secretly Backed Dark Money Mailers About Defunding Key West Police. Taylor, walk us through this disinformation campaign, because it's kind of like, it's not a straight line. It's truly fascinating. So these mailers start popping up on people's doorsteps. Tell us, what do they say? Who do they suggest is behind them?
Mm-hmm. So the mailers started arriving in Key West mailboxes in late September, early October, right around the time early voting began. And when people reported being confused about what they were about, they claimed that if voters voted to restrict cruise tourism through these three referendums, that the police budget and emergency services budgets would be cut so severely that 911 call response times would lengthen, and the city would essentially be less safe. And so the campaign didn't work very well, but all three referendums to restrict cruise tourism passed with more than 60% of the vote. But the mailers said they were from a nonprofit group called Protect Our Jobs, Inc. And through our reporting, we found out that the cruise industry, cruise companies were actually funding those mailers.
So you hear Protect Our Jobs, Inc. Did people think, oh, maybe this is coming from, workers who either work in the industry or are benefiting from the industry, this tourism in the area? Who did they think was sending out these mailers?
Exactly that. People really had no idea who was behind the nonprofit. And this is how dark money works. Nonprofits don't have to report their donors. And so industries use these nonprofit groups to fund political activity like these mailers and fund it themselves. But the claims in the mailers were false. City officials told us that there would be, even if there is a revenue shortfall from cruise tourism to the area, there would be no cuts to emergency services like police.
Mm-hmm. So at the center of this whole dispute is the desire to have fewer cruise ships dock in the city. And Key West voters voted 60% in favor of these measures. And, in the article, it basically says they didn't really try really hard to sort of campaign hard for these measures. And even with their kind of like mediocre push, there was still a 60% approval. What is the issue with the cruise ships? Why is it that the city is looking to reduce the number that dock there?
Yeah, this was a grassroots campaign by some locals who feel that the quality of life issues that they see that come with the industry, like traffic, they claim pollution and other issues, really outweigh the economic benefits of having the industry in Key West. And so they launched this campaign. On the other side, we now know that we have the cruise industry funding these mailers that went out there. It's also important to note there was a grassroots campaign of business owners on the no side. And we obtained some internal polling from the cruise industry lobbying group, Cruise Lines International Association, that showed them that the industry was not popular among voters. And basically the pollster recommended, if you're going to participate in this election, it better seem like it comes from locals and not from the industry. And that may be why they decided to fund the mailers in this dark money way.
That's so interesting, because that was going to be my next question. I mean, it would be perfectly reasonable to expect the cruise industry to want to defend its livelihood. It's taken a major, major hit because of the COVID pandemic. And so, of course, you know, why wouldn't they want to? So why do it in this sort of this deceptive way, for lack of a better word? Have you heard from the cruise companies that your investigation has connected to these mailers? What are you hearing? How are they responding?
Two of them, Royal Caribbean and MSC, declined to comment on our findings. Carnival Corporation responded with a comment and noted that their donation to the political committee that ended up funneling its resources into these mailers came well before the referendums were on the ballot in Key West. And also noted that this entire setup, this secret, you know, not very transparent funding of political mailers is totally legal, and that's a really important point.
Yeah, that is a really good point. Well, really interesting article, great investigation. Taylor Dovlin, thank you so much.
Thank you.